All right, welcome to part two. This is how to use the crypto capital gains tax helper programs I've written. Um, so, first of all, a couple disclaimers. This is extremely early alpha software. Use at your own risk. It probably won't work for you the first time out. It only supports a few exchanges, yada, yada, yada. If you want to help it mature, contribute via GitHub. Nothing in this repo or what I say right now should be considered legal advice. I am not a lawyer. You should definitely find one. And number three, I make no guarantees or assertions that this will work for any reason or any purpose at all. So just use at your own risk. With that out of the way, let's get into how to use this. So the first thing you want to do after you've gotten the project imported into whatever your editor is you want to go into the A constants edit me file. I named it that way so it would appear at the top. You've got this section here is where your exchange files reside and what they are named. This section here is the middle file, the one that gets created by the first program and then processed by the second program, and then finally the sales analysis CSV is the final output. This is just a constant for the different symbols that are found on Coinbase, and this is the known ticks. So it keeps a cache of the Bitcoin and BTC per ETH prices as pulled from APIs as it goes along, so they don't have to be redone over and over and over again. All right, so moving on into the history assembler. This is the first part. It takes all exchange files and puts them into a unified format. These two flags here, so I had a couple of special cases. I bought some Bitcoin in person. I used Bitcoin to buy into the Ethereum Ether sale, the original ICO for them. So I have to include some special things there. I also did some purchases on behalf of someone else inside of Coinbase and a trade for them inside of Poloniex. So I've had to exclude a few transactions as well. You're probably going to want to put both of these to false to start out with. If you just used exchanges and didn't do anything crazy, you can just set these to false. Let's go down here and just kind of step through the program so you'll know what's going on here. So the very first thing that happens is we initialize or pull in the data from our known ticks files, both the USD per BTC and the BTC per ETH files. So now we've got those into some objects that we can use. This is the output format. It doesn't have any bearing on the function of the program, so you can make this format whatever you want it to be in terms of your output file. Then we start assembling our common entries. So there are individual entries, Gemini entry and Coinbase entry, etc., and we're going to combine all those into common entries complete with BTC information and US dollar information. So this is the include special block that I was talking about, and I have a lot of them. I had Ether sale purchase. I had an in-person BTC buy, as I said before. I had mining income through Nanopool. I had mining income from solo mining. I had income from a bounty. I had mining from Waypool. I had income from my Ethereum DApp program that I wrote in 2015. You'll see that one a few times. So more solo mining, more solo mining. Someone paid me $50, 50 ETH to do a instructional video. It was another bounty. Here's some more Ethereum income, more Ethereum income. Sold some Ether to somebody at work for cash. Some more Ethereum income. I bought some DAO. I then sold that DAO back. That shows up in my Poloniex exchange file. Here's the ETC hard fork where I acquired a bunch of ETC. I read these comments I made here, how I handled the hard forks. I don't know if it's correct or not. It's really going to be up to you and your attorney to figure that out. I considered it, I just set an income flag as true for those, meaning I received that amount of ETC on the date of the hard fork. I think an argument can be made that you already own the ETC. I mean, an argument can be made that you didn't own the ETH, at that time because it didn't exist, and that the ETC was the only thing you did own, it gets really complicated. You should, but I think I've handled it in a conservative fashion here that will work for the purposes of reporting your taxes, especially if you didn't have short-term sales, because I'm saying this Etsy was acquired at the time of the hard fork, and I think it was probably acquired much earlier than that. But for me, it didn't matter, so I don't care. All right. This is the OMG airdrop again, treated as income at the time of the airdrop. And then it saves all those special cases to the file to start. It does that. It does the saving to the file after every import, so that you don't have to go back and redo. So these are the unified history, so that it doesn't have to redo them every time. All right. So first, then we go into Coinbase. This will handle all the different Coinbase files, and it does so by parsing the Coinbase symbols that are found in the a constants edit me file. So it'll do BTC, then LTC, then Etsy, and ETH. So go through here. Now here's my exclude special. If yours is set to false, this won't happen at all, but I went through and found some Coinbase purchases I did on behalf of someone else that I'm going to exclude for tax purposes, and am excluding those here. Let's see, moving on down here. Don't need this. I'll take that out later. So then we go through here. What happens is we're setting up a new common entry after we read a Coinbase entry from the Coinbase exchange file. We're saying that we know everything having to do with Coinbase is a first-hand USD derivation. So meaning it's to or from US dollars, so we know what the value of the exchange was at that time. We symbol that here. To, from, the units, from, how much to, per, from, the US dollar total, which is important for cost basis analysis later. Let's see. If the file if it was a BTC, then, so this is getting really technical, but basically what we're going through is all the entries in the exchange file and determining the BTC and the US dollar total at the time that was made. If it was BTC, then we don't have to do any external calls for the Bitcoin price. Obviously, if it was not from or to Bitcoin, then we go through the GDAX helper and ping their API for information, bring that in and put it in. We also save that tick to file once we retrieve it anew. And then we save the history, the unified history of all those to the output file. All right, so then we do the same thing for Poloniex, and actually let's skip Poloniex real quick. Go down here to GDAX. GDAX and Gemini, basically the exact same as importing from Coinbase. All right, it's US dollar is on one side or the other. Now the exchanges are different, the pure exchanges. So this is Poloniex. What it does is it goes through and it first of all, this is necessary. Poloniex does some weird things where it does trades to and from values that are almost totally zero. You can change these values to whatever you want them to be if you have a different tolerance for zero. I also did some selling of tokens for other folks, and I had to exclude those especially here as well. But here's the part about taking a Poloniex entry and turning it into a common entry for unification. I make an assumption that either one side of the buy or sell has to be BTC or ETH for Poloniex, because that's the only way to get to the US dollar value of the exchange. If you use Monero, which I think is the only other one left, then we'll have to add that later. Please make a suggestion if that fits you. It didn't fit me, so I didn't build it in, but it should be pretty easy to do. But anyway, it goes through, and if BTC is on one side, it knows the BTC price, obviously. If it's not on one side, then it has to go get that BTC price. Then down here where one side or the other is ETH, it doesn't know the USD per BTC tick at all, and so because BTC is on neither side. So it has to use the GDAX helper to go get that BTC price. Then if it then it has to do the BTC for Poloniex helper, the BTC plus that whatever that token was. So that's really confusing. For example, let's say I sold OMG for ETH. Well, we need to go get the BTC price at that timestamp. But in order to get the US dollar value, we need to know what the BTC per ETH of that timestamp was too. So OMG to ETH, we know the value of ETH and BTC, we know the value of BTC to US dollar, so that's how we get back to the US dollar value and create the cost basis at that time, or calculate the US dollar value at that time. So that all gets really technical, and I apologize, but you're going to need to understand a little bit of coding, at least be able to go in and edit one of these entries to do your custom stuff. But I'm going to go ahead and run this history assembler so you can see how it works. I'm going to set mine to true so that it uses my special case inclusions and exclusions. I'm also going to open my file. Here it is. This is my... I'm going to open this USD per BTC tick so you can see what happens when one of them, and you see a lot of them, so you can see what happens when a few of them have to get pinged for value on the external API. So I delete a few of those, and then I go back here and I run history assembler. Run as Java application. All right, so you can see that it's going to API GDAX and grabbing some information that it needs for pricing. And if you have a lot of these, it's going to take a long time. But once you run it the first time, it's going to store all those to these BTC per ETH tick files. And now you'll see if I run it again, it just runs immediately because it knows all that information that it got from the last run. Here are some special Poloniex exclusions. You can see that it's exchanging something very small for 0 BTC. I don't understand that, so it's just excluding those entirely. Now, that's all the hardest part, assembling all your information. Then we get into the history analyzer. It reads that file we just created and outputs to a CSV. The way it does this is it reads through the unified file and it looks for cells. Any cell of anything other than USD. When you're selling USD, you're essentially buying a crypto with USD, so we don't include that. It looks for cells. Then it goes back through and it's assembled a bit of the buying chunks here. So when you buy or acquire a crypto, you hold it, it becomes, in my terminology, a chunk that you acquired at some price and has some cost basis at some timestamp, right? So then it goes through and it determines for this cell, what was the earliest acquisition? What's the earliest chunk I still have of that same crypto? Was it, what was the cost basis? What was the value change? And what was the timestamp difference? Was it less than a year? Was it more than a year? And after it makes that determination, it spits all that out in a function, or sorry, into an output file CSV. So there's not a whole lot to explain in here other than that it's going to print it to the output line standard out, and it's also going to put it into a file for me. So I'm going to hit run history analyzer, and it does this running. History analyzer does not put this into the export file. That is just for you, and that's your 2014, 2015. What it'll do any year that you've got. It starts on in 2009, which is the Bitcoin Genesis block, going forward to currently. And I'm going to blur all this out later because that's my info. But anyway, it'll do your short-term and long-term gains for each year that you have done stuff. All right. So let's take a look at that output file really quickly. Actually, we'll look at it in here. It is hopefully human readable. This is on this date you sold from this symbol, this amount, to this symbol, which is US dollars. Generally, I mean, you can sell into other cryptos, which is also taxable events. And you bought, or sorry, you sold at this price, and here's where it's going to say we are going back and we're finding a chunk, and we found a sufficient chunk, meaning we found a chunk of 35 ETH, which is enough to cover this sale of 17.46 ETH. And that was acquired at this price, and it was acquired 396 days ago. That makes it a long-term purchase or a long-term sale. It had a gain of this total amount of US dollars. That was done on GDAX. And now these final columns are the running totals of your short-term and long-term holdings of all your different cryptos. So if we go over here and look at this, we'll see that all right, we'll see that it's keeping a running total of the Ethereum that I hold. It's this much in long term, this much in short term, and this much total. Then finally, all the other ones. So it's going to do whatever symbols you have. So if you've traded in 24 different symbols, it's going to have 24 times 3 long term, short term, and total holdings for all of those. So it could get pretty big. You'll just have to be careful with that. But for me, I only had a few. Anyway, yeah, blurring all this out is going to really suck. Or I could just show you, and let's not do that. All right, so that's how it works. And then you get your final output file. You import that into whatever spreadsheet program you want. And you can do your own custom calculations and analysis there. But at the very least, this should put it into a format that any accountant could understand. And you should definitely consult not only a lawyer, but also an accountant to get all this done and do it the right way. Do not risk your freedom. All right, that's it. Thanks.